Hey everyone, welcome back to the Visually Stunning Movie Podcast. I am Mark, your host. With me as normal is Ryan on this lovely Christmas Eve day. How you doing, Ryan?
We're surviving. Happy
First,
holidays, you know.
to you too, in surviving. That's what you have to do on the holidays. We're going to play a little bit of a catch up. I talked to Val the other day, and we talked about Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, but you and I hadn't had a chance to talk about it. So really quickly, I want to know where you fall in this spectrum of responses concerning the end, the final, the death knell of the DCEU.
Yeah. Ho hum. You know.
Ho hum.
Yeah.
That's not a poster blurb you see that often.
No. Yeah. Ho hum. I- you know, I felt like most of the film I just wanted it to shut up. There was so much uh, bad dialogue, and they were trying to. I mean, there was so much. We want to be Lord of the Rings in there that it was really kind of disgusting. And so they tried to squeeze kind of those historical where they had the voiceover and they showed the stuff or whatever. They tried to squeeze 3 movies worth of that into one 2-hour movie. And it really, I mean, there's times there's like, I don't need this scene. This scene does not need to exist. You spent, I don't know that I've ever really thought about this, but in other movies, but in this movie, it was like, that's a $5 million scene you didn't even need to make. You could have skipped that. You didn't even need to make that. Like, why did you bother making that scene? Because you don't need it. Like, it does absolutely nothing. And in fact, it might undermine, if you cut that, the next scene's actually better. Um, yeah, it was, I don't know that it was the worst DC movie I've ever seen, but it certainly wasn't the best. And I'll consider if this one was going to leave kind of any impact whatsoever, it was going to have to be one of the best.
Well, and the thing is, Val and I talked about this. This movie, it doesn't matter how good it was going to be or might have been. It doesn't matter.
Well, if it had been phenomenal, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, yes. If this had been Endgame,
So, but it wasn't even close, and you knew that. Unfortunately, I within the first 10 minutes, you just knew that. Okay, you know what? This isn't going to work for me. At least that was me. The startup of um, the fight scene, but then switching to action figures, and then fight scene and action figures playing with the kids, sort of thing. I get it.
yeah.
I just don't think it worked. I don't think making. I don't know. I just it just at that point I was like, okay, well, let's see where this goes. And then there was a couple things after that that I was like, okay, cut this, jump to just them underwater. Okay, that's cool. Be underwater, go to your, I mean, there were things in it that I think they probably had a pretty good movie in there. And I think they probably shot a pretty good movie, but I
But
don't
then they
think
got
they
cut and cut and cut.
and constructed in a way that it just doesn't really work for me. Um, Anticlimactic and constantly anticlimactic, I guess is
Yeah.
what I would say, which is kind of a weird thing. But I think we were all watching it with a little kind of, okay, well, what are you going to be? And oh, that's what you are. Okay, never
That's
mind.
what it is. So okay, so you kind of fall in line with everybody else on Aquaman then.
I wanted to be otherwise. I will say that I do think they did right by the Hera character in that. I know the actress may not be the most popular and may have, but I think they needed to have her throughout the film, and that was a wise decision. So we'll leave on that compliment.
Okay, there you go. So let's talk about a film that came out. Oh God, pushing a month ago at this point, I think.
I'm terrible. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. No, it's been out. Um, Godzilla Minus One.
Yeah.
Uh, this is a Godzilla movie from Toho. This is not Hollywood Godzilla. This is, the motherland making a Godzilla movie.
Oh, sure.
Um, and it's post World War II Japan. The the first appearance of, well, not quite, it's got the first appearance shortly before the war ends of Godzilla, and then after the war stops, we get more Godzilla. Let me be clear. I love this movie. I absolutely love this movie. I think it's one of the best movies this year, not just one of the best international features of the year. And I say that because I think this is just a really great post-war soldier movie story that happens to have Godzilla in it.
Well, and that's maybe the strongest thing about it. I had never really thought about this. This deals with, and we learn very quickly, this is not really spoilers. Our main character is a kamikaze pilot who didn't do his job. He lived. He bailed.
He ran away.
Yeah. So, and I had never really thought about, well, yeah, how would, if culturally speaking, what would people think that you're smart for running away, but they despise you for running away?
They despised him for running away.
Well, they despised him, and it's this. So there's this. He's got to, and he despises himself too. Let's be, I mean, he's not, thrilled with his decision making, but the will to stay alive was stronger than the will to do what he was, the suicide run, essentially.
Yeah, the guilt is not survivor's guilt; it's a coward's guilt.
Yeah,
this is weird red badge of courage, cowardice.
Yes,
and guilt.
And it's not something that I had ever, I don't think, really ever thought about. And so at that moment, I knew that I was more interested in this character than I, maybe. I mean, it was not. I don't want to say it was an up moment where you go, "Oh my gosh, this movie's going to be great," but at least it was like that. Oh, I had never thought about this. That's interesting. Yeah, let's see it. And yeah, so Godzilla, and I think Godzilla steals all the scenes that Godzilla is in.
Godzilla.
Yeah, but that said, you need something that an emotional sort of thing to carry you through the people stuff, and I think they set that up really well. And I think you get such a weird time politically. There's what world's America going to? But it's like, well, you were just at war, weren't you? What do you? Anyway,
yeah.
It was just a very interesting time for me, as far as not really. I think that's a part of history that, as an American, I'm kind of afraid to look at because there's a sense of guilt. But yeah, we obliterated a couple of your cities and all these people, and to look at the aftermath is not an easy thing. And to see it from an angle that doesn't really address the bombing itself, but is more about the day-to-day and the survivors. That's interesting.
Yeah, and we get to watch post-war reconstruction. Not just of buildings and everything else, but the society it has to completely reinvent itself.
Yeah.
Afterwards. And I think it's not really covered in this film, but I think one of the weird quirks of 20th century history is that the United States destroyed Japan. They destroyed Imperial Japan, mandated how they rebuilt themselves, and they rebuilt themselves in a way that allowed them in many ways to surpass the United States.
Yeah.
But maybe because they were starting from scratch and there was no resistance, there couldn't be any resistance. So I just think that's also something that gets lost, and you see those influences in the film as well. But yeah, it's the human story. And if you think back to all the old Godzilla movies, there was a lot more Godzilla in them, but they also really did want you to identify with the people. It was always about the people dealing with all the things. But this one takes that, I think, to the extreme in how relatively little screen time Godzilla has, but it also gives you it's a very grounded place for your people to come from. It's not just kind of this ephemeral, general people in Tokyo are trying to survive Godzilla. This is a guy that's trying to survive today.
Yeah.
And then also has to go and fight Godzilla, who's already lost to. He's already seen. He already fears him in the depths of his cowardice.
Yeah.
And so I think this one is just, what the old movies were doing, and it kind of distilled everything down really far to the point where but it's still a 2-hour movie. So it's not like it's really short. I mean, they distill all the important stuff to the essences.
Yeah. Well, and you still get Godzilla mayhem.
Yes.
There's no. It's not like, oh, Godzilla appears at the beginning and the end. No, I mean he's a constant threat throughout.
Yep.
And we get to see a variety of Godzilla's talents. And I thought the special effects, while maybe not Hollywood over the top-ish, worked really well. I mean, there was a couple little things where you could say, okay, that didn't, the green screen work maybe wasn't phenomenal on that,
but it was not.
It was not bad at all. And
No.
I know that this was made for a minuscule amount of money compared to what we'll be seeing next year with Godzilla versus Kong. So there's a lot about this that I just find really, interesting. Just even if you're going to just step out and look at the economics and the getting more for your buck sort of thing.
Yeah, I like the story was that this was made for $15 million.
Yeah.
And then it turns out that might not even be true, in that it might not have even gotten to $15 million.
Yeah. And that's just insane, because you look at what they did.
Right.
And it may not look like a $200 million film, but it certainly looks like it, reasonably, well done summer blockbuster.
Yeah. There's a reason it's still in theaters making money.
Yeah. And it has subtitles and people are still going.
I know, right? That's, Americans love to read. So that says something too. I mean, but that Hollywood, in case you've forgotten, is what's called word of mouth.
Yeah.
Business and repeat business. So just, keep that in the back of your head as you're greenlighting all of these ridiculous budgets and storylines. But like I said, I love this one.
Well, and the thing is, it proves that you don't need to spend a ton of money to make a really good movie.
Fact.
And it can still have the thrills and whatnot of that movie that costs 10 times as much.
Yep, 100%. But hey, look, if you enjoy what you're seeing and hearing on the Visually Stunning Movie Podcast, why not take a second to click subscribe if you're on YouTube, click follow wherever you're listening to us. Follow us on Twitter at VS Movie Podcast. Same over on Facebook. If you're on Instagram, it's Visually Stunning Movie Podcast. That would be awesome for us. We appreciate you listening. And now let's get back to the show. Another one that comes out, I think it comes out. Does it come out Christmas? Or did it come out this week?
It was Friday, I think.
So it just came out 2 days ago at this point. Poor Things got a lot of hype on the festival circuit, I believe. Festival circuit, the big festivals. And people love this movie. Emma Stone, Mark Ruffalo, Willem Dafoe. A weird take on the Frankenstein myth, with Emma Stone as the creature, and Willem Dafoe as Dr. Godwin Baxter, who is the monster from Frankenstein. If you want to make that straight line comparison, there's Victor Frankenstein, there's the monster, and if you want, Willem Dafoe is the monster who becomes a kind of respected scientist who performs his own unorthodox experiments, and Emma Stone is a result of that. And we figure that out partway through, or they explain that partway through, why she is the way she is. I I don't know that I love this as much as other people do.
Here's the thing. I think it's. I haven't really decided, and that might sound weird, but I know that I can tell you that it's extremely well shot. The art
Yes.
direction and the production values and the cinematic qualities of the film are unquestionably great.
Yes.
The story itself is pretty messed up, and they know that. They're perfectly aware that the story that they're telling is to use my favorite word, it's bonkers.
It's wackadoodle.
Yeah. Um, but it is a very, I think, because you have Emma Stone going to extremes in this, and she does.
You could say that.
Uh, um, uh, a lot of people have talked about, well, I hear she's naked, and well, yeah, she is, but I don't know. I mean, I guess the situations aren't particularly erotic, if that makes any sense. So if you're going into this film to just see Emma Stone naked, you're probably not going to get what you wanted. You're going to get something just
You're going to get something adjacent.
Adjacent. Yes. And I think it's maybe a film that in time I will kind of figured out what I feel about it. I kind of feel the same way about Saltburn. Um, Although I think this is better than Saltburn.
See, and if you made me choose right now, I would pick Saltburn.
See, and I would pick this. But you know what I mean. But it's not leaps and bounds. It's the same sort of uncomfortable area.
So this one, let's address the elephant in the room. This is a very feminist movie, but I can't decide if it's first, second, or third wave feminism.
I don't know that. Yeah,
or all of them. But here's the thing that kind of has been just kind of just chewing at the back of my brain is that a couple of years ago, you and I saw another film, kind of similar visually, also a very female-centric and feminist-leaning film called Paradise Hills, which I think I enjoyed more than this.
Really? I don't know. I'd have to think about that.
I would have to go back and rewatch it to be certain. Yeah. So I don't know why I'm not as high on this as other critics are.
Well, I think it's different, and
it's
not
yeah,
not just a little bit different. And I mean, to me, I'm kind of in this situation where it feels like Bones and All to me, in the sense that I can tell they've made a really good movie. I'm just not entirely sure what exactly it's saying. I think it's some of the best cinematography of the year. The art, like I said, the art design is so good in it.
Yeah.
It's such it doesn't present itself as a horror film necessarily, but it is a horror film of body horror, and it's scary in an intellectual way rather than
it's not. This isn't Cronenberg body horror,
but there's still elements of the grotesque, stuff. A lot of it's grotesque.
Yeah.
It's very.
The performances are good. Again, so I don't like I said, all the pieces are there.
Yeah.
But I don't know why I don't care for it, or I don't love it.
But I think
I don't hate it. But it just, I don't know.
I don't think. I think if everyone liked it, it probably didn't do what it wanted to do. So I think when you have a film that's very divisive, sometimes that's actually a good thing. Because I guarantee you that I think that we're in a situation where a lot more people are vocal in the positive than are in the negative, because those are the people who are passionate about it. I think the people who are probably didn't really like the film that much, don't hate it enough
To rail about it.
rail about it, um, or to recognize, that actually there is, undoubtedly a good amount of film work. There's parts of it that are undeniably good,
Yeah.
if not great. So I think it's kind of a hard film that, and it may not ultimately be your sort of film or whatnot. But I think it's an incredibly well-made film that is, like I said, I've yet to really decide how I feel about it. I think that would take another viewing, because I do think it's kind of abrasive to watch, because there's so much kind of stuff, that queasiness and whatever going on, that you almost don't get to take in the big picture, because you're so distracted by the little picture you're looking at in the moment. So I'm still divided on this, but if anyone were to say I think that's the best movie I saw this year, I would disagree, but I wouldn't think that they were crazy.
Yeah. I guess that's as far as I could go with it as well. It's just, it's just, like I said, I on paper, I should love this. I absolutely should love this. And I don't, and again, that bothers me. And I think I don't, this is a phenomenon I've noticed. If I think I'm going to like a film, or that I should like a film, and I don't, I think I dislike it more than I would had I not, been expecting something. And it's not like it's not even like this wasn't what I was expecting per se. I don't know. I don't know. And so that bothers me. And if it bothers me that I can't justify liking it, I'm going to dislike it more when I know I should like it. You know what I mean? It's one of those films that's, like I said, I don't find any particular bit about it necessarily divisive. I mean, the big thing is, yes, Emma Stone has sex all through this movie. And, accusations of misogyny aside, who doesn't want to watch Emma Stone have sex all through the film? But
there's this element, though, that's because she is, her mental development is, she's essentially a child.
Well,
mentally,
but that changes rather rapidly.
Well, but
and one can argue that it's almost tied to the more she has sex.
Sure, there's that element too, but I don't know. I still think that yes, there's a sense of she's being used in the beginning, and then at the end there's the question of, well, now who's being used?
Oh yeah, she stops being used a good portion of the way through the film.
But but how does that shape her? Down the road, I don't know. There's a lot of intellectual questions in here. I think that, again, I think it's a lot to take in one viewing, particularly when you have a film that, that is stylized and, just different. I think different sometimes is okay. I've got to figure out, but you're doing something different, so let me figure out what you're doing.
Yeah.
But someone asked me, can you believe that, this came out in theaters? Can you believe that this is, a thing that people want to see? And I could believe that, because it's, while weird, certainly, it has some real, cinematic quality to it as well, even if you're not there just for the nudity. Or, well, like I said, if you're there for the nudity, you're probably not going to be overly thrilled with the movie that you're getting, because it's I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, Florence Pugh was more erotic sitting naked in a chair in Oppenheimer than Emma Stone ever is in this film.
Correct.
There's more eroticism in that one scene in Oppenheimer.
Yeah, and that's on purpose.
Yeah. So, but then there ever is in this. So yeah, I mean, but it, like I said, that's not even I don't know. It's just the entire the entire mass of it. And I said, that's why I said all the pieces are there, but in my head, they're just not working. And that's that. I mean, like I said, I get why people like it. I can't be there. I haven't been able to make myself get there yet. I can't, me no grok, to that point, yet. Maybe if I watch it again at some point, I'll be like, oh, see, now they're all working in my head. I don't know, but I wouldn't tell people not to see it. But this is not light entertainment.
No,
This is an art house film masquerading as a big budget Hollywood release.
Yeah.
Mostly because of the cast.
Well, yeah, but yeah, it's definitely not. It's a fantasy of sorts and dark fantasy. It's kind of hard to, it's kind of hard to filter with the general public. I'm sure there's people who are going to see this who just kind of go in blind and are just completely dumbfounded by it.
Yeah.
And maybe you shouldn't have to do your homework when you're going to the theater, but you know what, folks, you probably might want to.
True.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know how a general public, because you look at who's involved and whatnot. You look at if you look at the poster and think, oh, that's unusual. Yes, that the way they market it, at least that element of it, it is as weird as it looks.
Yes, it is as weird as it looks. That is 100% true. So you liked it more than I did, which,
but again, I don't know that I don't know where I am on that spectrum of, I would need to think about it a lot more, and again, watch it again. And it's weird because sometimes you don't want to work for art,
right?
And I think this one for me, not for everybody, but for me, I'm going to have to do some work to figure out what I think about it.
Yeah, like I said, I don't hate it. I'm out there, and I don't want to put the work in yet. I'll put the work in eventually, but I'm just, after one viewing, I'm not ready to put the work in on it at this point. I'm just not there. My brain is not ready to process more at this point. So that's two we caught up on. I know the other big release this week was Rebel Moon, which you have not gotten to watch yet.
No, it's the sort of thing where it's like the reviews have been such that it's kind of hard for me to want to.
Right. I'll tell you to wait for when they release his actual completely different Zack Snyder cut.
Well, that in and of itself is a problem.
Yeah, well, yeah, it is. Because that is a huge problem.
You can't. There's very few filmmakers that Michael Mann being maybe one of the exceptions. Michael Mann seems to be able to turn out an alternate cut that's at least as interesting, or Michael Mann makes better movies than Zack Snyder does. Anyway, so that's part of it. But he revises. Ridley Scott does some revising, has done so over time. But it seems to be now Zack Snyder's thing.
Yes,
and that he thinks that everything should have a Snyder cut, and I don't necessarily agree with that. I think he should,
I said make the movie that you want to make, but I said he's setting himself up now, as some sort of martyr just to keep himself relevant. He's some sort of cinematic martyr. What I'm really waiting for is Netflix to come out and rebut the fact that they said make two versions of the movie. That's what I'm waiting.
Yeah, no, I would guess that they said. Well, yeah, I would imagine that he almost brought it up.
He did. He brought. He's the one that came out and said, "Well, they said I could just do whatever I wanted, but they wanted a PG-13 movie. But if I wanted to shoot an R-rated movie for later, that's fine."
Yeah.
And I'm just thinking, no, that that's way too uncontrolled.
Well,
Not even Netflix is going to do that.
well, and I would say ratings. Why does Netflix care? They don't care about ratings on any other of their series, really.
Exactly. It makes no sense.
It's not like, well, I had to have the version that they could show on TV, but you don't,
You're only on TV.
because you're a streaming service and you aren't beholden to the same sort of rules. You put a
Yep.
TVMA on that thing and no one's going to notice. Or people would just assume, well, yeah, of course I mean, most things are TV. And I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just weird and I hate it.
Well, and I guess there was a part of me that said, well, what if it is a really good Star Wars film? That isn't a Star Wars film. But what if it, what does that say about Star Wars? But we can't even have that conversation.
Nope.
Because apparently it's not a good movie.
Because it's not a good Star Wars movie. Although you spend the entire time with the Star Wars equivalents of everything running through your head,
yeah.
Which makes it worse. He didn't.
Probably.
It's not different enough after he was rejected by Disney for you to not sit there and compare everything to Star Wars and parallel it. So yeah, it wasn't great. But speaking of What If, also on Disney Plus is the new season of What If is out. Episode 1 is already out. I have watched the first 4 or 5 episodes.
How do you feel?
There's one, I saw someone else that had either watched them all or watched more than one, who said that What If had managed to put together a better Avengers team than anything Disney has done in phases 4 and 5. And I saw that episode, and I can agree.
Okay.
That said, I have issues with how Disney is using the What If format. As that being one of my favorite comic book titles, I have issues with what they're doing inside that format. And I understand why they're doing it, but it's completely wrong and flies in the face of what If is supposed to be. So that is a rant I could go on for a while, and I don't want to.
Is that partially because they're trying to build? Well, because we're dealing with so many alternate dimensions and things already.
Well, here's the thing. You feel like they're not dealing with that many of them in the series, but my biggest complaint about season 2, more so than a couple of episodes that where this really applied in season 1. Season 2 feels like really they're not what ifing in the way that it's supposed to be. They're not saying, this change, like what if the Hulk killed Wolverine? That was a great title. What if the Fantastic Four didn't get their powers, and you see how the world evolves from that, or whatever the thing is. Here they go, well, what if, like episode 1, what if Nova joined the Nova Corps? But then they it's kind of a reach how they get her to that point, because it's not like one thing, but then they spend the rest of the episode just shoehorning in other cinematic characters that really don't fit in the story that they're ostensibly trying to tell. So it's just a lot of cinematic cameos in nonsensical places, just so that it's not really a what if about this character or this event. So that is bothersome to me so far in pretty much every episode. Although I do have to admit, like I said, the Avengers episode, which I believe is episode 2, that worked because it felt more like an actual what if episode. So like I said, I have problems with what they're doing inside the format more than I do any particular episode. It's just in general, their approach feels very self-serving. They're not really experimenting with anything. They're not really kind of going out there. If X happens or doesn't happen, how bad is that change, or what happened? It doesn't work. That's not what they're doing. And that, so I don't know. It's just not really working. It's not what if. It should just be Tales from the Multiverse. which it's the same idea theoretically because you've got the watcher narrating everything, but at least then if they're not tying it back to what if is supposed to be. What if trended a little dark a lot of the times, and these don't really.
Okay.
So
yeah, no, you're right. The what ifs were like, how bad would things have been?
Right.
How apocalyptic would the absence of this one person be?
Yeah.
Kind of the exploration of the fragile nature of.
I mean, one of my favorite graphic novels is called Emperor Doom. And really, if you think about it, it's what if Dr. Doom conquered the Earth.
Sure, yeah.
And it's great. It's a great graphic novel. I highly recommend it to people. But there's got to be a lot of dark, and like I said, I just feel like they're grabbing all the voices and the character voices, and I cannot count how many times I've heard Taika Waititi in these 4 or 5 episodes that I've watched, because Korg keeps showing up, and it's just like, why? It doesn't make sense. It never makes sense.
A wrong direction, because we had more than enough of that character.
Yes, but it's not just him. It's like there are characters in places that don't make sense given the what if scenario that we've been given at the beginning. So like, what if in this corner of the galaxy this happened, then all of a sudden all these other people at the other end wind up in exactly the same place as this other person, when they wouldn't be there because their paths never crossed before that. They never would have wound up in the same spot. It just feels like they're just shoehorning in cinematic cameos, and it's bothersome to me. It just irks me.
It's a gimmick.
Yeah, it's just a gimmick. So we get Captain Carter, which is fine. She's in a few episodes so far, but they're using her appearances kind of intelligently based on what has gone before. But like I said, in the big picture, they're not using this format correctly at all. So like I said, it's more miss than hit thus far in from that point of view. So, and the animation styles are all pretty much the same, which is fine. But like I said, again, it feels like they're not even really, they're dealing with like 2 or 3 different dimensions. So it's not really a huge swath of what if. So yeah, it's just weird. I'm not happy with their approach. Not with any particular one output. Their approach is just off. So that's where that is. So it's Christmas Eve, sir. So I am going to thank you for coming, taking some time. We did a little bit of catching up. Luckily, we don't have any screenings for 2 weeks.
Not until Mean Girls, I believe.
Mean Girls on January 9th. But the Saturday before that, the Utah Film Critics Association will be casting our ballots for our awards, which is much later than a lot of people's. But we have a lot more. We have a lot of movies on our list that other people don't.
Well,
because we waited.
Sure, but I would say that all things considered, we're still beating most of the majors, and yet we're not so late that it feels like we're talking about last year.
Right.
To me, the Oscars are way too late. At that point, it's like we're still talking about that. And that's even a movie. If it's a movie I like.
Yeah, we're already talking about next year's movies, and then you have the award season.
So
for last year, yeah. So it'll be interesting.
Whatever. I think all the awards should be in January or thereabouts.
Late January. Yeah. There's more than enough time to put that together.
That's me.
So.
Oh, I know.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, go and enjoy the rest of your holiday. Go be with your family. To everyone listening and watching out there, hope you enjoy your holiday weekend, and next week be safe on New Year's Eve.
Yes, please.
Celebrate responsibly.
I don't want to be putting you on the news.
Yes, we don't want to see you on the news. That would be bad. So
good stories don't make the news on New Year's Eve. It's only
bad ones. So. Only the bloody 8-car drunken pileups. Don't be that guy. So until we talk to y'all again, I'm Mark. That's Ryan. Bye, Ryan.
Hey, friends.